This is our case on SolarWinds. Background on SolarWinds. So SolarWinds was founded in 1999 by David and Don Yancey in Tulsa, Oklahoma. This software allowed administrators of IT systems to monitor the functionality and performance of their computer networks. SolarWinds had quite about a lot of customers, 300,000, and was very reliant because it included each branch of the government. Sunburst, which is the malware, came into the updates of SolarWinds in between March 2020 and June 2020. So CEO Kevin Thompson, who reached out to the CEO at SolarWinds, informed him that there have been malware that had been inserted in his infrastructure. So by Monday, thousands of customers were contacting SolarWinds on how their companies would be affected and what would happen. So this is on supply chain attacks. So supply chain attacks were more common in the mid 2010s, and companies were very vulnerable because supply chain attacks. Um, there was no um, security controls to prevent that. Supply chain attacks gave access to hackers to penetrate the main company and all those who accessed the infected software. Um, so SolarWinds used the framework NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology, um, and NIST released 853 revision 5, which was released in the beginning of 2020. And this same framework and security controls um, was the same one that SolarWinds used. Two new security controls were added into the NIST publications, and these two were supply chain risk management and personally identifiable um, information processing and transparency. So these right here are the this right here is the revision 5 um, security control family, and the ones that we have, um, the new ones that we have is PT and SR, which is the last one, supply chain risk management. So this is RMF. If SolarWinds were using best practices, they would have not um been infected with the malware during the update. So NIST 837 talks about RMF. So there's 6 steps: categorization, which is the impact, selecting security controls, implementing security controls, assessing security controls, and authorization of information systems, and then after that, continuous monitoring. So, how would you determine impact levels on SolarWinds? You can determine the impact on information systems and information types using FIPS 199 as a guide. FIPS 199 is the Federal Information Processing Standards publication. So NIST 860 is the information systems and information types. So there are 3 levels of impact. We have low, moderate, and high. Low is limited adverse effects to assets. Moderate is serious effects multiple assets, and high is severe and catastrophic damage to assets. So over here, I made a little Excel sheet. This is a representation of how a GRC tool would look like. So as you can see, over here we have the list of workers and their role within the RMF system. And as you can see, if you look down to the left, you can see the information system type. So this shows what type of information the system holds, and this shows the confidentiality, the integrity, and the availability, and the impacts that it could have to the system. So, for example, if you look at the first one, it says moderate. So this can be a moderate impact level if the confidentiality was, taken or infected, integrity as well, and you can see availability as well. So that first row shows all moderate, and then under that it shows all the information types. So as you go down, you can see that the overall system category um, is high.
What is the Securities and Exchange Commission? The SEC mission is to protect investors, maintain fair, orderly, and efficient markets, and facilitate capital formation. Within cybersecurity, SEC's goal is similar to within any other company, to make sure the company is relaying information about possible or current risks and incidents to authorities and their customers. Why did the SEC sue SolarWinds? SEC claims that SolarWinds concealed its poor cybersecurity practices and increased cybersecurity risks. SolarWinds created misstatements about current cybersecurity practices, and they did not properly inform customers about the attack that occurred in 2020. They failed to maintain proper internal controls to prevent any attacks such as the one in 2020, and they did not inform customers about known vulnerabilities within their systems.
Some positives of SEC winning the case would be better regulations for future cyber attacks. So that would be improvements for software supply chains, having multiple cyber attacks. President Joe Biden implemented a requirement for software bill of materials or the SBOMs for federal contractors, and it pushes agencies to endorse zero trust cyber principles. Increased importance and oversight of SECs and cyber companies. So agencies will also see the importance of claims by the SEC about cyber attack risks. Stronger support for the SEC and related laws. SEC's main priority is to protect investors, allowing for fair and efficient market information. So they created a final rule, which requires agencies to disclose information on cybersecurity risks, incidents, and strategy, which allows for investors to be timely informed about information regarding to cybersecurity. And then agencies will take more complaints about different risks more seriously. Some negatives of the SEC winning the case. So the company is publicly traded, and that could affect the stock market. SolarWinds will have a decrease in customers and will become undervalued. Investors will continue to turn away from SolarWinds. SolarWinds would get bad public view, having investors know that SolarWinds knew about certain cyber risks and did nothing to prevent or protect can diminish trust. Challenges rebuilding trust and competitiveness in the market. Investors not having trust with the agencies they work with creates long-term problems for companies like SolarWinds. SolarWinds cyber attack affected over 18,000 systems, meaning some agencies no longer worked with SolarWinds after the attack, allowing for other IT companies to gain those customers. Companies similar to SolarWinds may need to update systems. When SolarWinds discovered the malware Sunburst, they had to notify and enforce their customers to update their existing platforms. SolarWinds had to shut down one of their domains in order to ensure that there'd be no further damage from the malware, costing them around $40 million in damages. Some positives of the SEC losing the case. Stabilization in SolarWind companies. SolarWinds would be able to continue the company without questions about further cyber safety. There'd be no questions about the safety within groups similar to SolarWinds, and the company would likely regain stability in the trade market. Shareholders in the company would also see large upticks in revenue. More companies would invest in SolarWinds again, and the stock market would become more regulated and better and back to closer to where it was before the attack. Positives of the SEC losing the case continued. SolarWinds would implement better cyber systems to prevent future attacks. SolarWinds obviously does not want another lawsuit to prove the SEC was correct. They would increase their cybersecurity, which would protect themselves and customers better. And SolarWinds customers would be able to trust the company again. Many customers left SolarWinds following the attack. If SolarWinds won the case, customers would likely come back and support them again. They could trust SolarWinds, that they did their best to fix and inform people about the attack.
Some negatives of SEC losing the case. Stakeholders and trust within SEC would be severely damaged. People would lose lots of respect for SEC regulations, and market perceptions of SEC could be damaged also. Questions regarding the effectiveness of SEC regulations. If SEC cannot combat a large cybersecurity attack, are they really effective? SEC would need to prove their regulations are the best to ensure the public safety. Lingering distrust of SEC and SolarWinds would occur. Although SolarWinds would have proved to have informed customers properly about the attacks, people likely would still have some questions regarding their effectiveness. People would question if SEC is properly protecting their investors and information exchanges. More negative effects of SEC losing is long-term creation of a new cybersecurity company. This could be a positive thing, but it would create more targeted attempts to focus on cyber risks. In between creation of different companies, set regulations would have no particular group in charge. This could lead to changes in SEC involvement in cyber attacks. Another company might be created to regulate cyber attacks only. The creation of a new federal agency to protect and maintain markets could be created. SEC would lose regulation of cyber attacks, leaving a period of time where both agencies govern cybersecurity or neither of them would. Here is our references.